Deep in the ocean, an orca pod is on the hunt. But these aren't your average orcas. These guys are organized.
Marketing team, did you get those social media posts scheduled for the SEAL migration?
Aye, Captain. We even have an automated notification for all pod managers when they go live.
They use Monday.com to keep their teamwork sharp, their communication clear, and their goals in sight. Monday.com. For whatever you run, even orcas. Go to Monday.com to dive deeper.
Regen auf mein Kopf. Hinter via Deckel muss es die kleine Fahrt im Top. Geht mir kein Sach mit, die Tropfen.
Hey everyone, welcome to Kill Me Now with Judy Gold. I am your host, Judy Gold, and this week on Kill Me Now is part one of my interview with John Pavlovitz. He's a pastor. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you're out of your mind. His most recent book, If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk, Finding a Faith That Makes Us Better Humans, is out and great, and he's great, and I hope you enjoy. I really love him. We did a radio show together and had so much fun, and he's adorable, handsome, and you'll see. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, and they, thems, and others, and whomever else, I'm so excited. I've been dying to interview our guest today ever since I met him at John Fugelsang. But did we meet on John Fugelsang's show?
We did.
Yeah.
It had to be 6 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that.
And I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. His name is John Pavlovitz. He is a pastor. He is an author. He is a blogger. He is a father. He is a husband. He is fucking smart. Oh, he's a brain tumor survivor.
Yes.
What else? I don't know. He's a graphic artist. He's a lot of things. And he's on our show. Or now, John, I don't know if you've ever listened to the show. I doubt it, but because all you do is write.
Of course I have.
I have a Jew bell. And anytime I mention anything remotely Jewish, I ring a bell, just to show people how much we've contributed to the world. Now,
fantastic.
I am going to go out on a limb. I think you have some Jew in you, John.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be the first one. And I can't, I don't know that I do, but I wouldn't want to deny it. It would be wonderful.
I'm telling you, look at your Jew face. And you're
exactly.
Are you part Russian? Are you part Russian?
I am part Russian, and we're finding out it could be Polish. So who knows, right?
I'm telling you, I know because I know. And did you do your DNA or no?
Have not done that yet, but we'll be doing that soon, and I can report back to you so we can verify this.
Oh my God, because I know I can tell a Jew,
Right.
We have a thing. And although you are Mr. Christian, I'm telling you, you have Jew in you. Anyway, but you know what? You'd be happy about it, unlike other people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Would not worry me.
So, John, I'm so glad you're feeling well because you had a tumor on your pituitary gland, and the bottom part, they went through your sinuses, right?
They did. So that nose was very handy. And so, yes, we had
you're welcome.
Doctors like, I got it made. And so, yeah, that happened in October. So they've gotten most of the tumor, but there's still residual tumor. And so we're working on that, trying to get that taken care of. So I did some blood work today, so I'll know pretty soon how we're doing.
Wait, so they got some of the tumor, and there's
that's right.
Because they had to, I read that it was a 5-hour surgery.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was out of it. But it lasted longer than they thought. And it was really kind of embedded in there. And so they got as much as they could. But because it's a hormone producing tumor, they've realized from the blood work that, we didn't get it all. And so I'm on meds right now to try to counteract that. And we'll find out. And there'll be a lot of steps we can take before I'd even have to consider another surgery. So I'm feeling really pretty good. The fact that I'm able to do all the normal stuff, and was able to a couple months out. It's fantastic.
And you feel good?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have some anemia and that I can't get to the bottom of. So energy loss. But for someone like me and you, that's kind of a drag because we hit those moments where we got to pull back. But really, I mean, I'm really fortunate. So that the fact that I can still write and travel and speak. And if I say something stupid or incoherent, I just blame it on residual tumor. So I'm going to use that for a while.
Oh, I might use that. I'm going to use that for my knee surgery 10 years ago. I got anemic from my knee surgery. I had a total replacement, and it's the worst feeling. Like I felt like I got up to do like the physical therapy, and I thought I was going to pass out. Like it's really bad.
Yeah. It's like having a weighted blanket on you. It's just kind of like you're just sapped of energy.
Do you have you been eating a lot of red meat? Huh?
I've been working on it. Yes, I have. And I'm getting the old iron infusion, which I heard is really exciting, where they just actually hook you up and give you a bunch of goodies. So we'll see how that goes.
That's going to be good. All right. Now, John, you are so fascinating. And, I remember doing the show with John. John Fugelsang. I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. And, I am a big Jew, but you grew up in Wake Forest. Well, you grew up in upstate New York, correct?
Yeah, Central New York, Syracuse, and lived in the Northeast and went to school in Philadelphia and college. Right. So Northeast for much of my life, and then came down to North Carolina maybe 15 years ago or so.
So you're growing up by Syracuse. You're from a Catholic family.
Yes.
How many siblings? I couldn't find that anywhere.
I have three younger siblings, 2 brothers and a sister.
Oh, you're the oldest.
I am.
Oh, so yeah. So my girlfriend Elisa is always very into birth order, and and it's so fucking annoying because every time we see, we'll meet someone and then she'll be like, "Oh, do you have siblings?" But you're the youngest. Exactly. Well, that explains it. I'm like, shut up. It doesn't explain anything. But
yeah, that's right.
There is something about the eldest that they think they're bossy and they think they know everything.
I can see that. I can see that in myself for sure. Okay.
You were very Catholic. Your family was very Catholic.
The kind of Catholic where, I mean, we didn't eat meat on Fridays in Lent, but my parents cussed and, watched anything they wanted to. And so it was a really confusing Catholicism. So I could do a lot of things, but then I had to confess it to the priest. Right. So
did you go to Catholic school?
I did. I went to Catholic school for.
Yeah, you were taught by the nuns. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, quite an experience. So my formative years all the way up until almost 17 was in that sort of environment.
So you're going to Catholic school. I don't know anything about Catholic school because I'm a Jew. So I went to public school, and then I went to Hebrew school 3 times a week, and I wanted to kill myself. But so what was Catholic school like? And did you have any friends outside of Catholic school?
Catholic school was a wonderful experience for the most part, but there was this guilt embedded in the whole thing. There was this sense of, God loves you, but you should probably be terrified of him as well. I can remember the nuns bringing in a full skeleton and she looked at all the girls in the class and she said, ladies, as you're putting on all that makeup, I want you to realize this is what you really look like underneath. And this is like 6th grade. We're all just staring at this big skeleton. So it did have, there were some things that were a little unusual. I'm learning now, but I did get a sense of loving my neighbor and the sense of the common good, which helped. But
you took it really seriously.
I did. I mean, I was too afraid not to. I think I grew up believing that, God loved you, but he was out to squash you. So do the right thing and don't cuss and don't masturbate and all those things like that. And so it was for me, it was my formative story. And so I couldn't see outside of it. I did have a lot of, non-Catholic friends, but there were barriers because I couldn't go to certain places. But for the most part, I accepted that diversity around me.
Your siblings, were they also went to Catholic school?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't until that we had like a schism with the with the Catholic Church over. I remember the priest, the head of the church, of the school, and the church calling my parents because they hadn't been giving as much as they had in a while, and there was sort of this really strong armed approach, and that
giving money wise, right?
Yeah, and that finally made my parents think twice about this. And then I had a sibling come out and as gay, and that really kind of severed that strong connection. It was more ceremonial after that.
Right,
it was
right.
never the same.
So as a kid, you go to school and these nuns teach you, right?
Mhm.
And they're in their habits. Are they in their habits?
They are habited up.
I have a lot of ex-Catholic friends, and a lot of friends that went to Catholic school. Do they hit you? Do they?
Some did. I had other kind of civilian teachers as well mixed in, and there were, the nuns were very. I remember one, she would come in with an acoustic guitar and she'd be rocking the folk songs. Right. And so she was really granola. But then there were some who were really stern and really, they brought out the ruler, just like all the stereotypes.
Right.
But it was a really diverse experience, even among the clergy who taught us, because there were priests as well. So it was really quite interesting to have them talk to us about things like sex and marriage and the irony of it.
That's the thing that is yes, it is so ironic. Like, I think about, as a Jew, the rabbis can get married and they can have families and they do family counseling. And it's like, you're a parent. You don't know anything about
That's right. No.
Until you have, I'm sorry. People are like, oh, my niece is no, you just don't, unless you are responsible, you are the kid's guardian, you are, right. You really, it's that, the thing that people say, like, it's like your heart is walking outside of your body.
It's so true. Yes.
And yet these clergy are advising you, or how do you reconcile that? I mean, did your parents believe, like, did they go to the priest or for advice or?
Yeah, they did. And, looking back now, having come through ministry as a pastor myself and having people come to me and realizing I'm not equipped to talk to people about this stuff. This could be some, mental health issues or something, that abuse, where I realized I was well above my knowledge. And then when you look at my parents or people in the Catholic Church who not only went to the priest, but considered them an in-between between them and God. And so that's the really destructive part, because they end up speaking for God, and you realize now they had no idea a lot of what we were even going through. Yeah.
So you go to school. Do you do any extracurricular activity? Like, what's it like? Do you have a longer school day than most people?
No, it was fairly normal. I mean, I think I played basketball and I hung out with my friends, and I felt like it was normal. And in a lot of ways, looking back, it was just, I had that sort of God story and that presence of religion that was embedded in all of that. But but I was, pretty social kid, had a lot of friends, did a lot of fun stuff, was into art, music, and so pretty well-rounded.
And, Catholic school, my son plays college basketball, and so many Catholic schools have great basketball teams.
Yes. And I was really, our school was not competitive with the schools around us. We were very different. So our soccer team, I was the most valuable player on our soccer team, and I scored one goal. I scored one goal, and that was a game that we tied. So we were, it was not a great experience.
But look, you were most valuable player. So
that's right.
Did you go to church every Sunday? Did you?
Oh yeah. Yes. Church every Sunday, church even on some days during school time. I was an altar boy. I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah. What was that like? What's it like being an altar boy?
it was a terrifying experience because it was going back into the inner sanctum of this building where you were taught that sort of God lived. And so you're basically in God's house. And I can remember looking back, we would get paid a little money to hand out the programs at church. And I look back now at this statement. I was probably 9 or 10, and there were 3 of us, 3 boys. We were getting our money. And the Monsignor said, "What shall we give him? Shall we give him instead of money? Shall we give him something else? Shall we give him a kiss?" And the 3 of us were just standing there with this awkward smile. We ended up getting paid and leaving. And I, maybe 15 years later, thought that was one of the most bizarre moments of my life. And it could have turned out completely horribly. Thank goodness we just, left. But never forgot just the power of religion and the power that people have when we place them in those, when we trust children with them. It would be unthinkable at the time for my parents to think anything but something wonderful was to happen.
Right. I mean, I've talked to a lot of ex-Catholics and people who are religious now. And what we know about the Catholic Church and pedophilia and all that kind of stuff that happens in the Catholic Church, not every Catholic church. I'm not saying every priest or it's been going on for so long, and these parents trust. They think it's like now with the gun thing. You send your kid to school. That's supposed to be the safest place they're at, and now they're hiding under their desk. And your parents are thinking, "I'm giving this kid a great education. I can trust these people because they're people of the cloth. They're people of of the Lord. They're going to do the right thing." It's crazy. I just. How do you reconcile? I know you're no longer Catholic, and we'll get to that later, but did you ever go home and say that was, you mentioned that one time. Did you ever say, "Oh, I felt weird," or "Is this one weird?" And I don't know.
I can remember the other thing that the Monsignor lived in lived in the house right next to the church and the school. And I remember one of the honors was to go over and clean shoes in the Monsignor's home. And I remember doing that during a school day and thinking, this is really strange that while people are learning, some of us are over here cleaning shoes for this man who's supposed to. It was like, it was really bizarre because I now try to connect the dots as to what was I thinking at age 10, 11, 12. And part of it was, I want to do a good job because this guy's going to talk to Jesus and I want him to give me a good report. Right. But, and again, so it's moments like that. And thankfully, I never had anything beyond some really odd moments. But I know obviously the horror stories are there. And that's where in the highest levels of organized Catholicism with the popes and the bishops, you really see how we protect predators in that kind of environment, because that kind of power, it does nothing productive.
And also, how do you behave? You're this horrible person, you're abusing these children, and then you get up in front of the congregation like, I'm the greatest thing that ever walked the face of the earth. And you deal with the parents. How do you do that?
Yeah, you get in that world long enough. And I learned it as being a pastor, that environment is so, especially if you're a narcissist, it is really a powerful drug for a narcissist because it continually tells them they are of elevated worth and zero accountability. And so you start to believe it.
As we talk about this, it's so similar to politics. The crap these people get away with and their real behavior, it's just total hypocrisy.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
So you believe in Jesus from the very beginning. Jesus is a very important.
Yep.
As a Jew, as you know, I'm a Jew.
And I might be.
And you're definitely, but what? Like, I really want to ask, you killed Jesus, you're horrible. You're like, what? Like, I really don't feel like dealing with that anymore, but I don't understand if you're Christian, how you can hate the Jews. Well, first of all, if you're Christian, how you can hate anyone, because it's complete, whatever. I mean, what true Christians are, there's that term tikkun olam in Judaism, heal the world.
Yes.
And I feel like that, that's the same for true Christians, but whatever. But the point is that, what is this? Like, Jesus was a Jew. Okay, we decided that we're still waiting. Do you have to vilify? Like, what is that?
Well, you find that, Judy, in most people, if their Christianity is based in fear, if it needs an adversarial kind of energy, then you're always going to be looking for an enemy, people to persecute, people to blame. And that's what we see in politics and religion at their worst, is it leverages this fear of the other, and it wants to get people terrified because no one wants to be accountable for the world that they live in. And so that's what I see. I see religion constantly used to create an other, to be the encroaching enemy, so that the church can say, we'll protect you. And what you see in Trumpism, you see it all over the place.
Right. You go through school. Were you a good student?
I was a decent student. I have a 16-year-old now, and I'm always kind of talking to him about his grades. And then I went back and looked at mine, and they weren't as good as I remember them. But I did find on my report card, my 6th grade report card says, there's little notes on the back from the nuns. And my teacher said, John is a very good student, but he often finishes his work early and distracts the rest of the class. So we've had to send him to the library. And so I've always been sort of an instigator, an antagonizer, entertainer, whatever it is. So, but I was a fairly good student. And yeah, I was probably a lazy student.
Right. Yeah. Mine were all... Judith is very smart. She's very disruptive. She has no self-control. I'm like, and it's funny because Ben, my younger one, who used to, I got called in because he would be talking or whatever. And my ex and we would get called in, and the teacher would be like, listen, Ben is, a great student, and he's participates in everything, but he's got to stop fooling around and making everyone laugh. And my ex is like, oh, he's in so much trouble. And I was like, yes. But at one time we went to the parent teacher conference, and the teacher's like, look, this is really hard because some of the stuff, like a lot of the stuff he does also makes me laugh. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud. And my ex is like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, oh, whatever. But, it's just so funny when you go back and read those report cards. Were you ever afraid of the nuns?
Yes, because I still, I'll still see penguins and get worried right now.
Right.
That's embedded in you because, again, they were not just teachers or authority figures. They represented God in some way to you. And so their anger was something that you really carried with you, and their correction. And I think that's what, that sense of people betraying that trust, but also the love for the common good. Both of those things I inherited from that faith system. So I hold both of them as in the work that I do.
So they sort of present this thing like be afraid of God, be fearful of God. You have to be good. Otherwise God's not going to love you. And FYI, we're the ones talking to him, right? Like we're the ones writing your recommendations, discuss. So, oh my God, that's so anxiety provoking.
Yeah. And then again, there were some throughout my life who I can look back now and say, they didn't buy that. They were working in the system, but they were subversive in their own way. And they were compassionate and they were helping us understand the beauty of diversity. But there were others who were, as with pastors and people in politics, they were absorbed by the system and changed by it.
Why do you think, like, you're a dad and a husband and a son and a brother, you know, like, I mean, I have a lot of friends who are not in relationships and have no kids. Okay. Why would you take a job where even if you wanted to, you couldn't? Like, you don't even have the option anymore. Like, yes. I don't understand that.
So, and you're saying from the perspective of,
like, I'm going to be a nun, which means I'll never be able. I love. There's so many great nuns, you know, and there's so many different sects of nuns that are like, you know, for climate change, and you know, like, there's so many cool nuns, right? But why close yourself off from that love, that another human being's love?
Yeah, I've always, you know, there was something about that sacrifice that was painted as a romantic gesture at the time. It's very strange. And looking back, what it does is it forces people to live a less than fully full life, right? They get this edited version of the world. And I just never understood how they could be giving us advice about things that they've never experienced and how sad that was.
Right. Yeah. And they wear a wedding band because they're married. Are they married? Are they essentially married to Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, I never heard that mentioned in school, but I remember trying to connect the dots between a bunch of priests who weren't married and a bunch of nuns who weren't married, and them always being together. And then looking now, I say, gee, I wonder what was going on there, because that's a really weird dynamic. And then they're teaching you sex education. So.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. I remember going to my first gay bars when I was in college, and people would say, I'm a priest. And I was like, what? I can't, you know. Yeah. I have bumped into so many or met a number of priests in LGBTQ plus at events or places. And everyone knows, and I don't understand it. How you can live a life.
Well, and doing the work that I do, whether it's coming out of Catholicism or coming out of Judaism or coming out of evangelical Christianity, many people in clergy, the expectation on them caused them to live. They couldn't live fully authentic lives outwardly. And so they had these inner lives that were always hidden. And so I see so much of that in people who have served in ministry, the way it actually destroys you. Right. And that's something I'm always pretty sensitive to. Yeah.
Did you ever have a crush on a nun teacher?
I can't say I did. I saved that for when I went to secular school in my senior year. So I probably would have known better. I mean, I might have liked some, but I would have had to confess that, and it wouldn't have worked out well for anybody.
Okay.
I actually I had a list of safe sins, by the way. So you had the screen where you go into the little phone booth and you confess that way. But our church had this new radical progressive thing where you could also sit with the priest in a classroom and just talk to him. And so we started doing that. So I had to come up with a list of sins that I would share with him that were good enough that he would believe me, but I couldn't give him the full ones. Right. So I have my safe sin list that I gave him.
Now, do you have to go to confession when you're Catholic a certain amount of times, or do you?
Yeah, you would. So if you wanted to go to take communion on Sunday, then you would have to go to confession sometime during the week. So it was often, if you didn't go to confession, you had to choose to sit in the pews while everyone went to communion. So it was a barrier for you actually to have this closeness through this communion meal with Jesus.
So I have been in a confession thing, and it's so, because we have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we sit there, we fast, we think, what I did all year, we pound our chests, I thought, oh my God, that's so That would be so much easier. Like, I did this, and then you go and you tell. But it seems so weird. Like, did you ever have to make up stuff because you're like, I didn't do anything wrong this week? Or
Oh, yeah, for sure. I made up sins all the time, or I would say, boy, I just did this horrible thing, but I can't share it. So let me come up with something else that's almost as bad, but not as bad. You know, George Carlin, I was just listening. He's got a routine about how he'd go to confession and you'd know that this one priest was really lenient. So you'd go to him because he'd get you in and out, you know, and that was true. You know, you would realize, okay, however much the bad stuff I did would require me to do a certain amount of praying. And so it was a really strange transaction that occurred.
Did you ever stop yourself from doing something because you knew you were going to have to go to confession?
No, I only remember saying I'm going to have to lie about this. So then you have to confess that you're lying. And so it became
it's like a catch-22.
It's a loop of damnation. Yes, it is.
Did you feel, now then they tell you have to say this and do this. They tell you what to do to be absolved, right?
That's right.
Once you did that, did you feel absolved?
I did for, 30 minutes. And then I did something that I knew I was going to have to confess the next week. So I remember trying to stay sinless for a while. Like an afternoon, I was going, okay, I haven't screwed up yet. And then I would see Linda Carter as Wonder Woman and go, oh, God
damn it. Well, that's something we have in common, John.
Oh, there we go. Yes. And our Jewishness. Though.
Yes.
This week's episode of It's Judy Show with Judy Gold is sponsored by BetterHelp. And if you know me, which I think you do because you're listening to my podcast right now, you know that I am a big advocate for therapy. I think it benefits everyone. I think there's so many people who need it, who don't partake. It is so important for your emotional health and well-being. Therapy is fantastic. It is in every stretch of the imagination. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, please do it. But please give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible. It suits your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I have switched therapists in my life. I've had many, many therapists, and sometimes it's not a great fit for you, but don't give up. Therapy is beneficial. You can learn about yourself. You can process and just be emotionally healthy. I'm telling you, do it. BetterHelp is great because, when I used to schlep to my therapist's office, it was so annoying. You have to do it and you sit there and you wait. And then I'm telling you, doing it online is fantastic. And BetterHelp is amazing. I know a lot of people who've used it. So if you're thinking about therapy, go to BetterHelp.com. Let the gratitude flow. This is Gratitude Month, people. So you need to let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/JudyGold, JudyGold, today, and you will get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JudyGold. You're welcome.
I don't know. I just find it fascinating that, that you do something, and is there this sort of comfort in knowing, oh, well, I did that horrible thing, or not even a horrible thing, but just a thing that's supposedly horrible in my religion. So I'll go to, and then it'll be over with. Like, just knowing it'll be over with. Like, I think for the Jews, it's like you keep thinking about it. Like, did you let it go at that point?
I did. I totally did, because the mythology, the story, the narrative was Jesus accepts that, and then you're a clean slate. And there is something really freeing about that idea. Later on I realized, okay, I didn't need someone to tell me I had that.
Right.
That was the part about it. But I did have that sense of relief and exhale, and okay,
I'm done with that, and I can move on. Yeah. We don't have any way of moving on. And then also the priest getting to decide what the punishment is. That's pretty intense, right? Like you are sort of deciding how bad this is and how much you have to repent for. Like that's pretty intense, I think.
Well, yeah, it is. But the whole thing it was always just really the amounts of prayers, which then you started to ask, I started to say, well, is God really up there saying, okay, if he says 10 of these Hail Marys, we're good. If he only says 7, then no. So it was this really arbitrary, strange, it was a transaction with my spirituality. It's very, very strange.
Yeah, that is very transactional. Okay. So I read that you said that you grew up in mainstream suburbia and you were very aware of in-groups and out-groups, I read. You just went along with everything. And then you go to college, you study graphic design at the University of the Arts in Philly. And all of a sudden, you're around artists and gay people and people of color and just all this. Yeah. And I mean, I can't imagine growing up in this secular, this is, and so God-centric, Mm-hmm. And you go to this, University of the Arts, it's this great school in Philly, but it's so diverse. Like, were you freaking out? Like, what?
I can remember I equate it to if you go to like a carnival and you throw like a ping pong ball in a little fish tank, you get that little fish and you take him home. You can't just throw him in this aquarium. You have to adjust him. And I was sort of just dropped into Philadelphia. And so surrounded by this diversity and really seeing poverty up close. And it was a beautiful thing. It wasn't frightening at all. It was just eye-opening, and to be around people who thought so differently and people I was taught to be afraid of or intimidated by. And then you talk about that faith story and realize that some of that started to blow up when I realized, oh yeah, actually, I remember my first job was working for a catering company. These two guys, Danny and Joe, owned the catering company. I remember like 3 months into my job thinking, Danny and Joe are such good friends. They have a business together. They even bought a house together, and then realizing, oh, wait a minute, Danny and Joe are a couple. Everyone in this catering company other than you is gay. So, and realizing that if I had known that at that time before taking the job, I wouldn't have taken the job because I was so intimidated or scared by what I grew up hearing. But now I love these guys. They were family. And so that was just one example of just everything being blown up. My old story is just getting blown out of the water.
Right. It's because it humanizes it. I mean, that's why Harvey Milk said, you have to come out. You have to come out. And it's true because then everyone realizes that they know and love a gay person, Yeah. So I'm sure they were all making fun of you. Like, John has no idea we're gay.
Right.
And they probably all thought you were gay or in the closet because you were drawn to the gays. So when you say I was taught to be fearful of them, how did they teach you to be afraid? I mean, being a gay and being around a person whose religion is like anti-gay, for us, I think on the gay side, we're like what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with you? But I never thought of it. Like, I guess you're right. It's a fear, right? What's the fear about? That you're going to turn gay or?
No, it was actually just being taught that for whatever reason, I wasn't supposed to approve of gay people. Right. And approval meant just not being horrible to them. And so what I didn't want to do was get God angry. So it was about what I was the view I was supposed to have was that this was wrong or unhealthy or whatever his story was. But I never wanted anything but to get it right with God, which meant I had to not approve, not consent to these people and their sinful lifestyle, in quotes.
Right. And
it didn't make any sense, by the way. And that's something, as I got older, I started to realize, I said, life argued with my theology. I started to have people in my life and say, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you start coming up against the narrative you've lived your whole life.
Right. It's just crazy. And you got a scholarship there, huh?
I did. Art was my life. And it was basically like fame, that school. It was like art, people singing in the cafeteria. And it was awesome.
And you were a visual artist, like you drew.
Yeah.
And did they foster that in your high school or?
Yeah, I can say they did, except for I remember them cutting back on the budgets in the Catholic diocese. And I remember them cutting our art teachers so that I ended up being taught by a nun who really had no aptitude by the time I was about 11th grade. And then I ended up switching to public school for senior year. But really for my whole life, that was all I wanted to do since I was about 5 or 6, being an illustrator. And so I did that and was working after college as an art director and illustrator.
Wait, you went to public school for your senior year. Was that like a shocker?
It wasn't, because my Catholic school was actually 45 minutes away from my home, but this was my local high school where all my friends from like roller skating were, and so it became, John's coming over here. And it was such a great experience because I did have a perfect transition. It wasn't that awkwardness that of all that time.
So did you go to prom and all that stuff?
I did. I was actually prom king. I say that I was homeschooled at the time, but no, junior year, I actually was prom king. And I just, that was one of the more surreal moments of my life. Yes. Made no sense.
I didn't even go to the prom. Okay. So you go to college.
Yes.
And you become an illustrator, do you still draw?
I do. In fact, it had been a while, but I actually started up again right before the last book came out, and I kind of gave away a copy of the artwork that I'd done. And so it's now becoming something that I do because I love it, but it'd been a long time. I'd been out of practice for sure.
Right. Do your kids have any talent in the
aptitude for that? Yeah. My one son is much more athletic, and he's real compassionate kid. But my daughter is 12, and she's total art, music, because I was a songwriter, so I was doing all sorts of stuff, and she's definitely got that bent about her. She's the passionate, fiery one.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Kill Me Now with the one and only John Pavlovitz. I said Pavlovitz. I know it didn't sound like it, but I did. Kill Me Now is produced by Laura Vogel, edited by Colin Schmaling. The podcast would not be possible without the help and the dedication of Brittany Jo Sowards. If you haven't subscribed and left a review, you're an asshole. Okay, that's all I have to say. 5 stars only, please. 5 stars only. And my book, yes, I can say that when they come for the comedians who are all in trouble, keeps getting more relevant as the weeks and days, it should be days and weeks and months and years go on. So that's a thing you might want to read. You know what I'm saying? Also, I have some shows coming up. Jessica Curson, who was a guest on the podcast and is a good friend, she and I are doing a show together at the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk, Connecticut on June 2nd. That is June 2. That is Thursday night at 7:30, and it's going to be fucking hilarious because we're both really fucking hilarious. Okay? Also, I'll be in Provincetown, Massachusetts. I start at the Art House, also known as the Fart House, because I'm very mature. I think I start, June 24th and 25th, Friday and Saturday, I'll be there. And then the following Friday and Saturday, July 1st and 2nd. A lot going on. So check me out. Oh, and check me out in The First Lady on Showtime. I'm one of Eleanor's lesbian friends. And I look like a lesbian. But I'm sitting the entire time because, Gillian Anderson is tiny and Eleanor was tall like me. And so that's that. And I look gigantic. But who cares? I'm in The First Lady. Also, let's see. I have someone who listens to the end, who has contacted me that, because I can't believe people are still on this. It must be that you're like in your car or no one's voluntarily listening to the end is maybe. I don't know. I always listen to the end too because I don't want to miss. I have FOMO on everything. So anyway, Gail Goldner is my shout out for a person who listens until the end. I don't know. Here we are in this world, and it's not the best. Because there's war and hate and war, and hate and war and hate and war right now. That's my war and hate song. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening. Please take care of one another. Please be healthy and safe. And I'm still wearing my mask. I don't care what anyone says. I just really don't feel like getting sick. And I don't know what else to tell you. I'd like to lose a little weight. But that's a whole other... You know what I'm talking about with the menopause? All right. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you next week. And as we always say, so long!